Let's go.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so I'm gonna take it another way, but come back around to what he was talking about. I have a question for y'all. How many of y'all have watched American movies?
This is Muslims. Nobody watches movies.
I know, right?
Are you kidding me?
Look at all these people who didn't raise their hand. Can everybody tell me who watched movies raise their hand? Look at this. SubhanAllah. MashaAllah. Okay. So you who have you noticed, have you ever watched an action movie? And when that movie, when it first started, there's a lot of action and a lot of killing and that type of thing. And during that time, some people are offed or killed in the beginning. And they're not really, you know, the story's not really around them, but they're killed. They might be good, they might be bad. Have you noticed that you don't notice them? Have you noticed how you don't care about them? Some people, when I ask this question, many people say they haven't noticed it, but when I ask it, immediately they recognize that they haven't. So then when you watch so let's say you're watching that same movie, and it started out with a person that it was featuring, and that person was taking care of his wife, or taking care of his children, or was a woman, and you know she had a loved one and she was deeply endeared to, and she had a fight within herself, and it stayed on her for a while, and you start to, you know, and then about half hour into the movie, she dies. You notice a different reaction within yourself. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I value this person more than the other ones who were killed? I'm asking anyone, have you ever asked yourself this question?
You know the story.
Good. So, what's happening, and my angle will kind of be about, to kind of talk about what he talked about, is, as he said, you know, and my experience is similar. I grew up in certain masjids, and they used to talk about, I remember being in a Desi masjid in Baltimore, and we used to play basketball as a teenager, and they used to call us the downtown Muslims. Sometimes after Maghrib, we would pray, and they say something about the downtown Muslims as if we were the other. And, you know, during that time, you know, we're young, so we just kind of brush it off. A lot of us, you know, we don't really internalize that, you know, how people are seeing or perceiving us. But what's happening is, or what's happened, why has that happened? See, when many, you know, when people come to this country, if they don't take the time or take the effort to engage in the people who've been here, then they will get their ideas from where? From the media, right? I travel around the world, and I speak to students, as he alluded to, the person who introduced me alluded to, speak to youth. I ask them questions about, you know, who their influences are. Very interesting, when they talk about black people, they say 50 Cent or Snoop. I'm in Amsterdam or South Africa, and the representation of African Americans are rappers in the mainstream who promote a certain type of image. So it's obvious that there's a prejudice. The question is how it got there. Are we willing to acknowledge it? And then how do we go forward? Well, the first step is to acknowledge that it exists. If you've lived here for any amount of time, and you've engaged in what most Americans engage in, then you have internalized prejudice and racism. And this includes black people. The first step is to actually admit that it exists. That we are human beings, we are a product of programming. As the clip I had earlier, I was talking to them about how programming works and how it's not new. The use of marketing and repetition and sound and imagery, they've perfected it over time. But what medium do you find uses repetition and poetic speech to get you to internalize a message? What medium do you use to do that from an Islamic standpoint? What medium do you think of?
Quran.
The Quran, right? These people didn't invent anything new. What's interesting is that what I find about what secular institutions tend to do is they tend to take ideas that have already worked, that Allah revealed, and put a mask on them and twist them and act like they created it. But everything that's ever been effective and positive was created by Allah. Everything that's good was created by Allah. So when I think of when Allah talks about this world being an illusion, think about what the media does. The media does not take falsehood and just give you falsehood. It takes the truth and spins it, and that's why you're attracted to it. Our fitrah is attracted to the truth. So, as we talked about earlier, Allah has given us certain emotions and feelings: fear, sadness, anger, happiness. What psychologists do and marketers do is they go and they study how human beings react to these various emotions or feelings. What attracts them? Now, when it's funny, when I read Quran, I see Allah utilizing the technique of appealing to our fear. Everyone likes to, there's some people who like, people are interesting to me. There's some people who say, I don't believe in fear. There are other people who say, I don't believe in hope. There are other people who say, I don't believe in love. But if you look at and you utilize the mediums that hypnotize us in the secular world that are effective, what do they use?
Hope, fear, love.
So what you realize, and what I've come to realize, that it is up to us to take back our hearts from the places where we voluntarily give them back to where Allah gave us a choice to give it to. You see, the difference between them is that they like to give us messages through the back way, deceptive. Allah says, here it is, right here. Choose it. Not choose it for your own good, but it's your choice. He doesn't mince words when he talks about fear. He comes at you straight with it. He doesn't mince words. He tells you that he is the creator of evil. Because he is Allah. He does what he wants, but it's for a purpose. Then you have the marketers, and they'll tell you, we don't deal in evil, or we don't deal in fear, or we don't X, Y, Z. It's deceptive. So now, because when they're effective, what they've done is they've effectively convinced you to ignore what Allah created, that you need to acknowledge, something that you need to deal with within yourself in order to be a full, healthy human being. So coming back to what we were talking about. We live in a place, we've acknowledged that we live in a place where the messages, and inshallah tomorrow I'm going to get into this a little deeper. The messages that have been portrayed of black people since they have been promoting and propagating messages has been far more negative than positive. After acknowledgement, first, we have this book, we have this Quran where Allah says it's the criterion, literally this discerner between right and wrong, because how do you know otherwise? Everything else is subjective. You know, this man says, I think this is right. This man says, I mean, like he was talking about Black Lives Matter. They have their, you know, ideas of what's right and wrong. Some of it may be right, some of it's wrong, but how do you know? The second thing is, you need to seek real people in real situations and spend time with them, like you spend in those movies, getting to know over a 2-hour period of time this personality. After 2 hours, you were crying. You were crying over this person. You were hurt, and you know why? Because you felt them, you related to them, and they became like you. But you know what you did? You made the choice, decision, and effort, and took the time to sit with that entity, that thing, and judge it fairly. If we don't make the effort, if we don't see it as important to make the effort to sit with the human beings who, like you said, have been here since the beginning, and I just literally did a course in, African American history, and I was looking at, the amount of slaves who came here, the percentage of slaves who came here and established themselves. Islam has been here. Really, it's some reports are that there were Muslims who were coming here, Africans who were coming here before slavery. They just didn't care to take over the place. So what's happened is really this. I just had to write a paper. I'm a part of an interfaith organization called ICJS, and we were asked to write a paper at the end of the program. And I wrote a paper called The Convenience of Negligence. And I had an analysis basically of what was going on with the whole Trump election. And I was talking about where—
What was going on with it?
Well, just, who were the reactions that we had. And I was talking about how, even a lot of people who were in my group, we were scared and shocked and surprised and all of this stuff. And I was more shocked and surprised at the shock than I was at Trump. I really was, because I guess I realized that I was projecting my understanding of what has been going on in this place for forever on everyone else.
Mm-hmm. That's real. I
had to look back and say, wait a minute, wow. You know what? People don't really have this understanding, but I've been literally around, like, those who are a victim of mass incarceration, this public school system who have failed our children since forever. Studied, and putting it together, I'm like, what, wait a minute, man. It's been convenient for people to think black people are in this position. Mm-hmm. That people really think black people are in this position because they believe the hype. And now, finally, people are coming out of the sleep and saying, whoa. And let me tell you, if for 400 years, and we're here today, and there are still, out of the 2 million people in jail, 60 to 70% of them are African Americans. Hundreds of thousands of people are in jail right now because they don't have bail money, not because they've been convicted. Then really, there have been human beings who've been banned. There have been human beings who've been banned from their humanity since before any of us were born, and it has not stopped. So coming back to this reality, Trump is, I'm sorry, for me, I'm like, man, to a large extent, I was like, finally. Because it was like, okay, I felt some relief because I'm like, people are seeing, they're now forced to open their eyes and see what's been going on for the longest time. But now my question is, what are you going to do? What are we going to do here? Because we're at a critical juncture right now. And I've seen some reactions that I like and some reactions that I'm worried about. The reactions that I'm worried about are the reactions where people have put everything down and everything away, and everything that's wrong with this country is Donald Trump. What do you think is going to happen? Wait a minute. So what happened before he was here, and what's going to happen when he goes? Are we going to go back to the same thing? So Trump, like everything else, is the qadr of Allah. And to me, he's a sign. We now have an opportunity, those who are sitting here right here today, to get it together. At this very moment, you're still free. You're free right here to sit here and listen to me. This is a sign and opportunity. Allah promised us as Muslims that we are going to go through adversity. And really, those of us who have it, it's the mercy of Allah. But don't think, don't think that that's not going to come. If it's coming, let's get it together. And the first thing I say is we have to acknowledge how it got there so that we don't fall back into the same thing. Because let me tell you, comfort is addicting. Comfort is addicting. You want to go back to it. It's like a drug, really is. I mean, to be able to go back. You do realize that we are in a place, the United States of America, most people don't have the running water that we have. It is not easy to think about the fact that your humanity is at stake. That's why it's very important actually to go back, and I would say regroup into the communities. I would give this advice. Regroup into the communities who have been facing this. Intern with them. Ask them questions about how they dealt with it. Sit with them. Don't try to tell them what to do. Just sit and listen. Success is not just defined by whether you reach the goal. For me, success is about how you went about the process. As we know, some prophets died with 1, 2, 3 followers, but they were successful. Other prophets died with many followers, but the success lied in their sticking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His road and His justice and what was right over themselves and over their comfort and their willingness to do so. So while we still have this freedom to do that, take the opportunity. Let's take the opportunity where we have a little bit of freedom and go find some people who have been here longer, who are really, even though they don't have a lot, and it may seem to you, because maybe the streets look decimated and dilapidated, that they don't have success, but they smile, they love like nobody else. They take care of their children, their wives, their mothers like nobody else. And their process, in many ways, is a lot better than those of us who have more affluence.